So welcome back again. In this exercise, you have to develop an application where user can draw an animation path and then an object gets animated through that path. Let me show you the final product because I've actually already developed it. So this is the application that I have, and in it I have a record and pause button and an animate button. So if I go to record, I can actually draw a path whichever way I want, let's say this one, and then I can stop the recording and I can say animate. And the ball gets animated through those points because I have recorded their locations. So that's kind of what you have to do. An animation recorder based on where your user taps or their touch moves in a more technical term. So good luck with it. Pause the video now, give it a shot on your own, and then have a look at my solution as well. I'm gonna pause here for just a few seconds. Okay then, let's go ahead and get started in Xcode. I'm going to go in here and start a new project. I'm going to call it Draw Path Animation. And in my Draw Path Animation, the first thing I have to do is I have to head to a storyboard and design the basics of the interface in here. So the basics are this. I have a UI view that's going to be the animating canvas essentially. So I'm going to place it here. Maybe I make the background a little bit of a different color, such as a light gray, so we can see things easier. Then I have another UI view here, which I'm going to make it red. That's going to be the ball. Of course, we have to change this corner radius in the code. You could very well make an IB designable view, but I'm not going to bother with that. So we have the ball in here, and then I will have two buttons. One button will be here. This is essentially my button that records the animation. So record, and I'm going to make it black and a different background color. Maybe if it is not recording, maybe leave it orange. And then I will have another button, and this button essentially animates based on whatever we have. So this is called animate. And that's all I have to do for my storyboard. So let's go ahead to assistant window and add all of the outlets here. So this is going to be canvas. So that's the UI view canvas. This one, I'm going to call it the ball or just ball. This one will be my record button. And then I will have two actions. The reason I needed to have an outlet for this button is because I want to change its color as the animation, as the user taps on it and is recording. I want it to be red, showing that it is recording. And if it is not recording, I want it to be this color, orange. So I need two actions. One of them is called record action. And the other one is, of course, animate action. And this is probably the last thing that we have to do. Animate action. So that's all we had to do. Let's go back in here, and I'm going to fix a few things real quick so we can test the application at least once and know that everything is kind of working the way we wanted it. So that's that. Now, before I test the application for the first time, let me write a little bit of code in here. And that little bit of code is this. The moment view wants to appear, view will appear. I'm going to say super.view will appear. True. Do this. Say ball.layer.corner radius becomes 32. And the number 32, I got it from being half the size of the ball. Or if you want it, you could actually say get it from the ball itself. Ball.bounds.size.width divided by 2. So the moment the view will appear, we will get some radius on the ball, and that's going to help us visually recognizing the UI view, which is usually by default a rectangular shape, into a round circular shape. So now we have the ball, and now we have to worry about the record and animate and everything else. So the first thing, I'm going to have to add some new variables. One variable is this. I'm going to call it recording, and that's going to be a Boolean, which is false by default. So that's the one that's going to tell us whether we are currently recording or not. And if we are recording, we have to remember the locations that we went through. And for that, I'm going to say I have another variable. Let's call it looks array. And that's going to be an array of CG points. That is an empty one by default. So right the moment the app loads, we will have a recording and locations array. And now let's go ahead to our record action. And in here, depending on whether we are recording or not, we want to change the look of the record button. So I'm going to go ahead and say if recording, do something else, do something else. Here are the things that we want to do and we know for a fact we want to do. If we are recording, we want to switch that to be false. So we don't want to be recording anymore. And if it is on the else, we obviously have to change that to true. So that's one part of what we have to do. The other thing is the look of this button, the record button. So if we are recording currently and we're going to get it false, then I'm going to say this one dot background color goes to UI color dot orange again. And if we were not recording and now we're going to be recording, I'm going to make this one red. So we know that we are recording. Finally, in here, when we are about to start a new recording, I'm going to say this array might already have some values in it. So I'm going to have to set this to an empty one again. So every time we press the record button, we should get this. Let's go ahead and see if that's happening the way we are hoping in here. Record, that becomes red. Record, that becomes orange again. Not the same color, but that's okay for now. So once again, and once again. Now we have to think about what happens if we are recording. If we are recording, the idea was that as the user draws over this canvas, we get a path and we memorize the locations where user has tapped and we use that for animation. So apparently that is to do with touches moved, or you could use UI tap gesture recognizer. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to use the touches moved. Touches moved, and in the touches moved we have to check for two things. One of them is are we recording, and the second one is are we on this canvas view. So I'm going to go ahead and say let's get the touch first. Let my touch be touches dot first, and then I'm going to say if my touch dot view is not canvas, or if we are not recording, then you just have to return. Don't need to do anything in here anymore, because if one of these two options is not met, it means we are not recording. We have to be in the recording mode and we have to be touching the canvas. Anywhere else, we shouldn't be doing anything. So once that is taken care of and we know this is not happening, we end up here in the next line of the code. The next line of the code is actually rather simple. I'm going to go ahead and say this array, locations array, appends to itself the current location, which is my touch dot location in view canvas. So we're going to say if this didn't happen, it means all of those conditions are properly met. Go ahead and append the new locations into the looks array, and it's telling me this value is an optional one. Are you sure you want to use it? I'm going to say yes, absolutely, because I know this is happening. And that's actually all we really have to do. But if you wanted, you could actually offer your users some sort of a visual feedback as to where they have tapped as well. And I'm going to do that by drawing some UI views. I'm going to say let guide be a UI view which is made in this CG rect, and the rect is going to be 0, 0, and I'm going to give it a width of 6 and a height of 6, and I'm going to say guide dot background color becomes UI color dot maybe yellow, and then guide dot layer dot corner radius, make it 3, and then I'm going to have to place it somewhere, and that place is where we have tapped. So I'm going to say guide dot center becomes my touch dot location in view canvas. And again, we have to do the same thing, making sure that this location actually forced unwrapped. And then I'm going to have to obviously add it to the canvas. Say canvas.add subview guide. So this is completely unnecessary, but it really helps to give your users some sort of a visual feedback. So let's see what we have. So now in here, if I try to draw, nothing happens. If I go to record mode and I try to draw, we see those little dots happening in there. Maybe yellow wasn't really the best color, to be honest. I'm going to change that real soon, but we can see that it's actually working. And then when we stop, we should be able to press the animate button. And when we record again, I kind of want to get rid of all of these guys and be able to add new ones, a new path essentially. So let's go ahead and fix both of these in one go. I'm going to go in here and say, first of all, that yellow was a terrible choice. So purple would be a lot better. And the second thing is this. If our canvas already has some guides on it, get rid of them. Now there are two ways of doing that. One of them would be to put all of the guides inside an array and remove them. The other one would be a solution such as this one. So every time that we go to our record in here, record action, and we are going to begin recording, I'm going to have to clear the canvas as well. To do that, I'm going to say do this for any view in canvas.subviews. For any view that is a subview of canvas, say any view dot remove from superview. Now there is a little bit of a problem with this, and that's something that I'm hoping you guys notice it. The red ball is also a subview of the canvas, and we have to account for it. So I'm going to say if any view is not the ball, do this. So remove everyone unless they are the ball, which don't remove them. So let's see where we ended up by all of these, by making sure we remove everything every time we begin the record, and by making sure that we have a purple color guides added. Record, I'm going to go ahead and that's the direction, like an S. Stop the record, record again, everything disappears, and we can do everything that we wanted once again, except that the ball stays there at all times. And now if all has gone well and we have drawn these locations properly, we should also have them within the locations array. So that locations array should be now ready for the animation as well. So let's go ahead and write the animate part of this application. I'm going to come in here, and this is actually rather simple. I'm going to say let anim, just like the last time, CA key animation, TA keyframe animation, and the keyframe animation I'm going to give it with a key path, and the key path is key path of CA layer dot position. So that's really simple. Then I'm going to go ahead and say animation dot values are my locations. So they are called looks array, locations. Now you could choose to have animation dot time as well, but if you don't give it a time, it's going to evenly distribute it, which is what I want to happen at this point. I'm going to say animation dot duration, make it maybe 3 seconds. So we have that taken care of. And then I'm going to say ball dot layer dot add animation to it, and that animation is going to be this one for a key that doesn't really matter at this point. I'm going to say path key or anything to that effect. It doesn't really matter. There are a few things that I want to be careful about before I run this one. One of them is this: if user hasn't chosen sufficient number of locations, let's say the bare minimum is obviously 2. If we have less than 2, then there is no animation to be made. And you can actually expand on that. You can say that your user has to choose at least 4 locations. But I'm going to stick to the bare minimum now. I'm going to say if looks array dot count is smaller than 2, which means 1 or 0, just return. Don't do anything in here. Or better, you have to give user an indication that, hey, something is wrong and you have to choose more locations or something to that effect. That's part one of the things. And the other one is, I'm going to say you shouldn't be able to tap the animate if the record is on. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and say we could do this in two different ways. One is that we could disable this button while we are recording, or two, we could actually go in here and say, or if we are recording, return. Don't do anything because we are still recording. So that's, I think, all we had to do in here. Let's go ahead and run this application. If it all works, as I draw over the canvas with the touches moved, we remember the locations and then we can animate it. Record, go do this like a U. No more record, animate. And that's that. It works exactly the way we want it. Record again, and this time write number 3 and stop and animate over number 3. Very funky animation. Your user can do whatever they want to do with it. And I think that's about that. I will see you in the next lesson then.